And if I told you that there's an extremely obscure and overlooked Marvel character who could easily defeat the Man of Steel, that's right, it's Count Nefaria. Count Nefaria was a descendant of a long line of Italian nobles and inherited a vast fortune. He was always fascinated by technological advancements and throughout his life commissioned scientists to create advanced inventions that he would use for his purposes. The character was defeated several times, including being deported to Italy, and on one of these occasions, he assembled a group called the Lethal Legion. After being defeated again, he and his assistants analyzed the cellular and genetic structure of the superhuman criminals who made up the Lethal Legion. They used these findings to replicate their powers in Count Nefaria, making him a very powerful being. He became a being made of ionic energy, no longer needing air, food, or water to survive, and is virtually immortal, both in terms of aging and physical damage. With super regeneration, he became such an incredibly powerful character that his abilities could rival Thor and Hulk in raw strength. He also gained super speed, superhuman senses, invulnerability to the point of withstanding Thor's attacks without any issue, and energy manipulation. If that wasn't insane enough, because with these powers I mentioned, he managed to go toe-to-toe with the Avengers and some of the most powerful heroes in all of Marvel. He also has teleportation, and with ionic vampirism, he can drain the energy of other beings to strengthen himself, even influencing the beings he drains. So Superman would have to face a character who is physically a match for him, is immortal, has a much broader range of abilities than Superman himself, and on top of that, could have his powers drained and become a slave to Count Nefaria. And curiously, one of the characters who will be in today's video is known for being a copy of Superman, the Hyperion. But not just any Hyperion, this is the one from Earth 423, known as King Hyperion. This character killed all the heroes of his world and reigned over them without any opposition until humanity as a whole made a final effort to kill him. They simply launched all available nuclear weapons against Hyperion, and even then he survived while the rest of the world was ruined by the nuclear holocaust. The character is so powerful that he beat and killed several alternate Avengers along with the Fantastic Four. Not only that, he is capable of humiliating other heavyweights, having given a real thrashing to Juggernaut, and there will be another character on this list who did the same thing, but I'll talk about that later. He was able to fight against two other alternate versions of himself at the same time and was winning against both. The character also has super regeneration to the point of being able to resurrect if he dies, which is very difficult to happen, by the way, considering that the average Hyperion is already capable of going toe-to-toe with the Hulk and even forcing him back to his normal state with a single punch. I believe, yes, that this more powerful version of the character could go head-to-head with and even defeat Superman, despite having few appearances. Moving now to the core of the mutants. Onslaught is a classic character in the X-Men comics and emerged after Professor Xavier shut down Magneto's mind, following the villain's extraction of adamantium from Wolverine's body. That was the final straw for the mutant leader, who decided to end the threat posed by Magneto once and for all. The problem is that instead of erasing Magneto's mind, their personalities merged and created a new villain, in this case Onslaught. Here, I have to make a clarification. If it's just Onslaught on his own, Superman wins and with relative ease. Now, if it's the character at his peak, then there's no chance whatsoever for Superman to win. This is because, as the story progresses, the character accumulates more and more power until reaching a point where the heroes were giving up their own lives, sacrificing themselves to destroy him. And I don't think that's an exaggeration on his part, as the character gave a real thrashing to Juggernaut, to the point of leaving him traumatized. The Hulk was also among the characters who tried to confront Onslaught, and he only managed to go toe-to-toe with the villain after releasing the Bruce Banner part of his mind and becoming pure rage. This also shows Onslaught's incredible resilience, as he was only defeated after Hulk unleashed his full potential strength. But Onslaught isn't just about brute strength, he's also one of the greatest telepaths and telekinetics ever created by the publisher. His mental energy blasts managed to destroy several skyscrapers, and his telepathy was able to overpower Jean Grey with ease. After deceiving Franklin Richards to gain his power, the character also gained reality manipulation, so I don't see any way for Superman to defeat him. Physically, Superman might be able to match him, but considering that his mind is more powerful than Jean Grey's, who is an Omega-level mutant, it's most likely that they'd be evenly matched, and Superman would end up being controlled. And another character who devastated all of Marvel's heroes was Kang, the conqueror of timelines. Nathaniel Richards is a time-traveling warlord who felt felt extremely bored in the 40th century and craved battles, Kang built a time machine and forged powerful battle armor to satisfy his love for war, becoming the greatest conqueror of all time. The character has in his arsenal the greatest weapons of all time, from the past to the most inhospitable and distant future. Even if Superman decides to attack him before Kang can use any gadget, his suit has equipment that allows him to react instantly to danger, preventing him from being hit. Even if he is, his shields can withstand attacks from Thor with Mjolnir, Hercules, and Namor. So physically, Superman would have to exert tremendous effort to do anything. Heat vision and super breath would also be useless since Kang can redirect them through time portals and hit Superman on Krypton while he was still a baby. If that's not enough, he could send the Man of Steel to the end of the universe where the stars have already burned out, leaving him to slowly lose his powers in the vacuum of space. But still talking about characters who use technology to overcome their opponents. In 5th place, I put Ultron. He, who is Ant-Man's greatest creation and also his greatest disaster, created not only one of Marvel's biggest villains, but also one of the beings that constantly threatens the universe. It's worth noting here that Ultron has several versions, and I believe some of them could defeat the Man of Steel, but not all, as not all have the same power level. But it's worth remembering that even some of the weaker versions were able to go toe-to-toe with all the Avengers, so even the weaker ones would still give the character a hard time. Ultron 6, one of his earliest versions, was already capable of withstanding multiple nuclear attacks, and keep in mind that this is one of his weaker versions, which shows his incredible resilience. Starting with Ultron 19, not even Sentry could physically match the machine, and Ultron was even capable of drawing blood from the hero with his strikes. In the Age of Ultron, the character was so invincible that the heroes were forced to take shelter underground to survive and had to travel back in time to prevent Ultron from coming to power. Not to mention that Ultron has created duplicates of Vision, showing he can use technology to become intangible at will. Plus, he's the one who created Vision, right? This is just considering Ultron's brute strength and resilience. He also has technology to attack enemies from the inside out, mental attacks through hypnosis, and so on. He has even developed spores that he claimed were capable of turning everything in the universe into clones of himself. So this guy isn't just an enemy for Superman, he's an enemy for the entire Justice League, and perhaps all the heroes of Earth and the universe combined, if Ultron is in the mood to eliminate everything in his path. But going back to talking purely about brute strength, and also about another character who is kind of a Superman clone, we have the Void. He who is actually a parallel personality to Robert Reynolds, the Sentry, a character we'll see in the Thunderbolts movie. This evil version of him is terrifying because he can use Sentry's powers without any of the mental instability drawbacks that the character carries. It's so frightening that even Doctor Strange, the god of magic, and the Hulk are afraid to face him head-on. In his first appearance, they had to gather Earth's greatest heroes to prevent his arrival, although at that time, they treated the Void differently from how he's treated today. Even so, he's capable of completely ignoring attacks from Doctor Strange, the god of magic, and Loki, who at the time was the Sorcerer Supreme. He's strong enough to fight on equal terms with Sentry himself and has also broken every bone in Hulk's body using his shadow manipulation power. During the Annihilation Saga, he also fought Beta Ray Bill, and not only easily blocked all his attacks, but nearly killed him with his strikes. Keep in mind that Beta Ray Bill is physically superior to Thor, which further shows Sentry's superiority over the God of Thunder as well. I really think it's almost impossible for Superman to defeat him, especially since the Void also has other powers like super regeneration, matter manipulation, and so on. And check this out, I really couldn't find the real name of this character, so I just went with calling him Dark Hulk. But even without a proper name, he definitely deserves to be on this list. During the Silent Screen comic, the Grey Hulk pays a visit to Doctor Strange while he was trying to subdue an interdimensional creature that was about to invade Earth. The problem is, this wasn't just any creature. It came from a dimension far superior to Earth's, from a molecular level to a grand scale. And another big problem is that this character was the equivalent of Earth's Sorcerer Supreme, but from his dimension, the Strange Dimension. At that point, he was overpowering Doctor Strange before Marvel heavily nerfed him, physically defeating Namor and battling Bruce Banner in his mind. All of this at the same time. But this was exactly what gave the heroes some chance against him, as he had to fight 3 battles simultaneously, one of them mental. Of course, Superman wouldn't have the same luck. Physically, I do believe he could defeat this Dark Hulk. But we know one of the Man of Steel's vulnerabilities is magic. And considering that this character was magically overpowering Doctor Strange and could still rely on brute strength, something Doctor Strange can't do, I believe he has a strong chance of defeating the Man of Steel. And still talking about sorcery, Loki might seem like a glass cannon character, but he could definitely take on Superman. And I'm not talking about the God of Stories version, but the classic evil god of mischief. I'm sure most of you don't realize how insane this character was, starting with one of his main weapons, a sword. But not just any sword. A mystical blade strong enough to destroy Asgardian swords and hot enough to burn Thor's skin without even touching him. Considering that one of Superman's vulnerabilities is magic, this wouldn't just be effective against him, it would be super effective, causing far more damage than it typically does to Thor himself. Although he may seem physically weak, the character was capable of fighting Thor and even knocked him out by hitting him from behind. Sure, it wasn't the fairest way to take down an enemy, but we're talking about the God of Mischief, right? And it still shows how physically strong he is. Of course, he doesn't come close to Superman in terms of strength, or even his own brother, but that wouldn't be his main weapon in a battle. What would be crucial are his powerful spells, and even with a fraction of his power, he was able to break Doctor Strange's most powerful shields. Dormammu and the Silver Surfer have stated that he's powerful enough to destroy the entire Earth if he wanted to. His spells can be cast at a speed faster than thought, as he's done several times to defend himself. Even Surtur, the leader of the Fire Giants, and a being powerful enough to ignore Thor's attacks, was injured by one of Loki's mystical assaults. Not to mention that he can travel between dimensions, manipulate matter, bring inanimate objects to life, disable or reverse powers, and so on. It would only take landing a single spell to defeat Superman, and it wouldn't be too difficult, given this character's track record against heavyweights. And of course, in a video like this, we couldn't leave out the one known as Marvel's greatest villain. Not the most powerful nor the most famous, but certainly the most imposing and the one with the most history in the comics. Victor was born in a fictional country called Latveria as a gypsy and is one of the few characters in Marvel who has complete mastery of both science and magic. Thanks to this, he's a character who technologically has armor that rivals Iron Man's best, while also possessing mystical powers that compete with those of Doctor Strange. In fact, in current comics, he's the character who holds the position of Sorcerer Supreme, even preventing a demonic invasion of Earth. I could spend all day talking about his suit and the gadgets he carries, but I'll limit myself to talking only about what would be effective against Superman. To start, once again, Superman's physical attacks wouldn't have much effect, as Dr. Doom has a force field built into his armor. This force field has been able to withstand blows from the publisher's biggest heavyweights, like the Hulk, for example, and curiously, even the Hulkbuster. Speaking of the Hulk, the armor also grants Doom strength, capable of fighting the Green Giant and making him bleed with his punches. Like Kang, the character integrated a time circuit into his armor, allowing him to travel through time. This again could end the battle right there. Dr. Doom could easily go back in time to prepare before Superman even thinks about attacking him, or before he attacks Superman. This isn't something I made up recently. Dr. Doom did this to himself, preventing himself from attacking the Fantastic Four after realizing it would cause a temporal paradox. But of course, his greatest weapon against the Man of Steel would be his spells, since, as I mentioned before, Superman is vulnerable to magic. He could simply summon a legion of monsters to distract Superman while preparing a larger spell to quickly end the fight. One of these spells could be the same one he used against Morgan Le Fay, sending her 1,000,000 years before Christ. And then we're back to the same situation I mentioned when talking about Kang. He has also managed to disable the Fantastic Four's powers and used his magic to summon beings that amplify his mystical abilities. So he's another character I firmly believe Superman wouldn't be able to defeat because he has such a vast array of abilities that Superman's chances are greatly diminished. Dr. Doom is truly a very difficult character to deal with, so much so that Thanos keeps constant vigilance against him, knowing the danger he represents. And it's exactly this character who wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Leave your like down below and also comment which of these you think would actually defeat Superman. Send it to that friend of yours who doesn't know anything about comics and help the channel keep growing. Thanks and see you next time.